welcome to today's video. This is an introduction to part 1, exercise 1 of Hanon the Virtuoso Pianist. These are preparatory exercises for the acquirement of agility, independence, strength, and perfect evenness in the fingers. What that means is we want every single finger of our hand to sound exactly the same when playing these notes. We don't want any variation in duration, any variation in dynamics, or of tempo. So we want it to sound exactly the same, which means we don't want any fingers that are stronger than the others. Naturally, thumbs and these fingers over here of the hand are going to be stronger, of course, because they're bigger. And as we go towards the outside portion of our hands, ring finger and pinky usually are weakest. But we want to develop so that they are all evenly strong. Okay, so the first exercise works on the stretch between the 4th and 5th fingers of each hand. When we start with the ascent, the fingers are going to be placed in a C position, but skipped by a third. So we have kind of a D position, but with the 5th finger and 1st finger on C. These are the hand positions. Notice there's always going to be a third skip between each hand. That is the stretch between 4 and 5 or 1 and 2. The stretch is mostly for the left hand ascending, and then when we do a descent, it's going to be the stretch between 4 and 5 on the right hand. So stretch, ascending for the left hand, right hand stretch for the descent. Let's talk about these exercises here. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to play starting at 60 beats per minute. As you can see on page 1 here, exercise, these are all 16th notes. If 16th notes are just too fast for you right now, we can go ahead and slow it down and make them 8th notes. If 8th notes are still too fast for you, we can always make them quarter notes. I would recommend that you start by introducing yourself to this exercise playing quarter notes. Let's go ahead and listen to the metronome at 60. Okay, so we have our metronome here at 60. We can hear that. There it is. Okay. And we have the separation of a third between 5 and 4 and 1 and 2. Let's introduce you to the pattern. And this pattern will repeat over and over again on the ascent, and then it will just go backwards on the descent. Okay, here we go. C, E, F, G, A, G, F, E. When we come to this point, E, played with fingers 2 and 4, finger 5 and 1 will then play D. Once you play that D, your hand will move into the new position, which will skip a third, skip a white key, and begin on E, on D. D, F, G, A, B, A, G, F. Once you get to this point, you will then move your fingers over to E. Once you play that E with 5 and 1, your hands will switch over to the new position. Always prepare the new position before playing those notes. So once you play there, boom, the hands will shift and prepare for these new sets of notes. Okay, let's continue with E. E, G, A, B, C, B, A, G. Notice how my thumb and 1st finger or 5th finger have already come over and placed themselves over F, the next note to come down with these fingers, even before I am to play it. That's called preparing ahead. A pianist should always prepare. And then we come down on F, F, over G. When they come down, you move on over. Okay, very good. Very good. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to continue with this exercise just so we can see what the notes are. And what we want to strive to do is what I mentioned at the beginning. Try to keep every single note even, same volume, same duration, same tempo. And of course, having the metronome on will definitely assist in that. As you play each of these notes, do a little bit of a bounce or a pump with the hand just to shape those notes. Let's keep it at legato. Here we go. Shift. It's already over the next notes. Shift. At a nice forte to fortissimo dynamic to get the best benefits of these strength building exercises for the fingers. Nice and even. Okay, so at this point, when we are now at octaves, kind of like 4 and 5 here, we have the third stretch once again. We come back to D, we're about to play C, but actually, this is where the hand direction changes. Before playing C, we're not actually going to play C, so we're stopped here, fingers 4 and 2 on D, 4 and D5. Then we're going to play G with 5 and 1. Now the descent begins. Now the stretch between 5 and 4 here with a third is where we're going to start going this way. Here we go. Let's try that out with the metronome. Listening to each note to keep it nice and even, nice and loud, and nice and straight. Try to make it perfect. Let's continue with the pumps. Shift, and when you shift, try to shift with your entire part of that hand. And notice my 5th and 1 are already over that key, which is to be played. with 5 and 1 on C. And your hand is placed once again in C position. Okay, so that's how we end that exercise with the ascent and the descent, exercise number 1. Now notice how this was just an introduction for us to this exercise. I would really highly recommend that you play it exactly as I played it now, as quarter notes. Okay, once you have become familiar with the pattern, you will realize that this will continue to repeat over and over again, and eventually it will just be memorized like that. The pattern is quite simple. It is just coming up and down and skipping by a third within the 5 and 4 or in 2, depending on where you're going in the direction. Okay, so after having become familiar with this exercise, then we will begin with our correct rhythm, which is either 8th notes, depending on your level, or 16th notes. Let's assume that we are now ready to play at 16th notes. When you start at this tempo of 60, what we would like to do is lift the fingers very high. And when I say lift the fingers, that means really exaggerate the lift. I'm talking really high lifts like that. And that's kind of like getting the full benefit of a weightlifting hand. When you're lifting dumbbells, you're getting the full range of motion for that arm. And that's exactly what your fingers are doing too. We want the full range of motion for these fingers, which is why you bring it down and bring it all the way up as high as it goes. And bring it all the way back down. Strengthening it in that manner. But then, if you are ready for the 16th notes, let's go ahead and do it that way. Continue for the rest of the exercise. Now you may be wondering, that seems rather exaggerated or like a lot of extra work. Well, eventually the high lifting fingers will go away, and once you are able to play it at 108, it'll simply be a nice, smooth, kind of like a hovering look or effect over the keys. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and bring it up to 108. And take a look at what that looks like. Okay, very good. You may have noticed that I did change the accent, or I did change some of the notes a little bit here and there. I was doing a crescendo. I did accent the first note while the interior notes were a little bit softer. And that's just simply a variation that I've become accustomed to playing with this first exercise. However, when we are first learning it, we want to keep every single note exactly the same. Once you've mastered this exercise at 108, and it's perfectly fine under your fingers, it's perfectly fine also to change the dynamics, to change the accents, or to change anything else you'd like for variety. But when we're first learning it, we want evenness of the hands perfectly. Okay, so I know this was a very long introduction to this exercise, but I hope you practice it well, and we will see you at next lesson. Bye.